The elevator doors were almost closed when he said it. "Hold it," the black woman in the navy cleaning uniform called softly, pushing her cart forward, hoping to squeeze in. Victor Langston didn't even look at her at first. He just stared straight ahead. Perfectly tailored charcoal suit, platinum watch catching the fluorescent light, his phone in one hand, as if the entire world existed only in the glow of that screen. Then he glanced sideways, saw her uniform, saw the company logo stitched above her heart, and his jaw tightened. He hit the door close button 3 times in a row. "So, please," she started. He snapped. "Take the service elevator," he said, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. "This one's for executives." The cleaner froze. Her hand was still reaching forward, the cartwheel half-turned. For a split second, you could see the hurt flash across her face before she swallowed it. In the lobby, conversations died. A receptionist stopped mid-sentence. 2 interns, carrying coffee trays, exchanged looks. Someone's phone quietly shifted from home screen to camera. The door slid shut. The billionaire was alone in his private elevator, riding up to the top floor of the building he owned, in the company he had built. He thought the moment was done. He had no idea that his entire life had just changed. He had no idea that in a matter of days, the board would be demanding answers, investors would be threatening to pull out, and his own past, one he tried very hard to bury, would come bursting back into the light. And he definitely didn't know that the very woman he'd just humiliated would be the person standing above him later, as he lay on the floor, gasping for breath, terrified and very, very human. If you're still watching at this point, let me ask you, have you ever seen someone treat another human being like they were invisible? Like they were dead, just because of their job, or their skin color? Yeah, that's where our story begins. But to understand how things got this bad, we need to rewind. The man in that elevator was Victor Langston. You've probably seen his type on magazine covers or in success videos clipped for social media. Self-made billionaire, tech visionary, owner of Langston Towers, the glittering glass skyscraper that dominated the downtown skyline. People told a simple story about him. He came from nothing. He worked day and night. He built an empire. And in a way, that was true. But people always leave out the messy parts, don't they? They leave out the people in the background. The ones who mopped floors so someone else could stay late and grind. The ones who kept lights on and bathrooms clean while executives stayed in conference rooms making big decisions. One of those people was Maya Johnson. Maya was the cleaner in the Navy uniform that day. Early 30s, dark brown skin that glowed when she laughed, hair tucked neatly into a bun under a simple head wrap. If you saw her on the train at 5 a.m., you'd think she looked tired. If you saw her with her son, though, you'd see a fire that never went out. She had 2 jobs. Morning shift at Langston Towers, cleaning the top floors before the executives swept and smelling like cologne and confidence. Evening shift at a small local restaurant, washing dishes until almost midnight. Between those shifts, she squeezed in the real job that mattered most to her, being a mom. Her son, Elijah, was 9. He loved science, video games, and asking questions that made adults pause. "Mom, why do rich people get taller buildings? Mom, why does Mr. Langston never say hi? Mom, why do people act like you're not there when you're cleaning?" Maya always answered gently, but there were some questions she couldn't fully explain. At least, not in a way that didn't crush something inside him. So instead, she focused on what she could control. Work hard. Be kind. Look people in the eye, she told him. Nobody is better than you. Nobody is less than you. She repeated that to herself, too, when she scrubbed coffee stains off white marble floors. Now, Langston Towers wasn't just any office building. It was a symbol. 50 stories of reflective glass and polished stone. The lobby alone could make you feel small. High ceilings, art installations, a waterfall wall behind the reception desk. All that for people who spent more time staring at their phones than at anything real. Every morning, cleaners like Maya came through the side entrance, signed in at the basement level, picked up their carts, and rode the service elevator up. Because of course there was a division. Front elevators, soft music, ambient lighting, brass accents. 4 suits, heels, and VIP guests. Back elevator, steel walls, harsh fluorescent lights, the occasional flicker, full boxes, deliveries, and people in uniforms. The unspoken rule was clear. But here's the thing. Maya didn't actually break that rule that morning. The service elevator had broken down. Out of order, a bright orange paper sign said, taped crookedly to the steel doors. Carlos Rivera, the building's facilities manager, had just finished updating the cleaning crew. "We're calling the repair guys," he told them. "For now, if you really have to move between floors, you can use the regular elevators. Just try to avoid the rush." He gave them a tired little smile, like he knew this wasn't going to go smoothly. "Look, if anyone gives you trouble, tell them to call me," he added, patting his phone. Maya nodded, grateful. She had just finished wiping down the boardroom on the 38th floor. Her cart was stacked, recycle bin liners, disinfectant, paper towels, a mop bucket half filled with water. She had 15 minutes before she needed to be on the next floor, so she wheeled her cart toward the regular elevators, feeling slightly self-conscious. But rules were rules. Carla said it was okay. When the door slid open and she saw him inside, she froze. Victor Langston. She'd only seen him in person twice before. Once at a company-wide town hall where he gave an inspiring speech about innovation and thinking like owners, not employees. He never mentioned the cleaning staff. Not once. The second time was a fleeting glimpse of him striding through the lobby, flanked by assistants, a line of reporters trailing behind. Seeing him alone in the elevator felt like walking into a lion's den. Still, she pushed forward. She'd done nothing wrong. She was just trying to do her job. The wheels of the cart squeaked softly as she hurried toward the elevator, heart beating a little faster. "Hold it, please," she called. Victor looked up, his expression already impatient. He saw the cart first, the mop handle, the cleaning supplies. Then he saw her, his eyebrows pulled together in irritation. The doors, sensing her presence, began to close more slowly. He could have just stepped aside. He could have said, "Sure." Instead, his finger jabbed that door close button over and over like it had insulted him personally. "Sir," she tried again. And that was when he spoke the words that would follow him around this city, and then far beyond it. "Take the service elevator," he said. "This one's for executives." He put a little emphasis on that last word, like it was a title she could never understand. "Now, I want you to pause for a second and imagine being in Maya's shoes. You're just trying to go from one floor to another. You're sweaty from rushing, your back hurts from lifting trash bags, and you haven't had breakfast yet. Then a man whose net worth is flashing across business news channels casually tells you that you don't belong in the same metal box as him. Because of your uniform, because of your job, because you, to him, are maintenance. And underneath all that, because you're a black woman in a space where he thinks power should always look like him." Maya's hand hovered midair, her breath catching. In that brief pause, 1,000 little moments replayed in her mind. A woman in heels dropping a coffee cup on the floor and just staring at it, then at Maya, before walking away without a word. An executive laughing as he called her the help. Someone snapping their fingers at her like she was a waitress in an old movie. She swallowed hard. "I'm just doing my job, sir." "The service elevator's broken," she said quietly. His jaw clenched. "The fact that it's broken doesn't make this elevator yours," he replied. "Use the stairs. Oh wait." The doors slid closed between them. On the other side, Maya stood there, her cheeks hot, eyes burning. She became acutely aware of the silence in the lobby. The receptionist staring at her, unsure what to say, and in turn looking down, pretending to check their phone. The security guard near the entrance shifting uncomfortably. Someone cleared their throat. Maya pressed her lips together, straightened her back, and turned away. "Fine," she murmured. She pushed her heavy cart toward the stairwell, alone. What Victor didn't know, what he couldn't be bothered to notice, was that he hadn't just humiliated someone in private. Right before the doors closed, a phone camera across the lobby caught the whole thing. The billionaire's dismissive gesture, his words, the cleaner's face, and the sound, clear as a bell. "This one's for executives." If you've ever scrolled through social media and stumbled on one of those videos that makes your blood boil, you already know where this is going. But in that moment, inside his elevator, Victor just adjusted his tie, checked his reflection in the mirrored wall, and told himself he'd done the right thing. After all, he was late for a meeting, a very important one. He had investors waiting upstairs, and in his mind, people like Maya were just background. Let me tell you something about people like Victor. They almost never start out this way. Victor was not born in a penthouse. He was born in a two-bedroom apartment above a laundromat on the rough side of town. His mother, Jean Langston, was a cleaner too. She wore the same kind of uniform Maya did now. Different logo. Same smell of bleach and dust clinging to her hands no matter how hard she washed. His father. He left when Victor was 12. Walked out with a duffel bag and muttered, "I can't take this," and never came back. Victor grew up listening to his mother's tired footsteps at 1 a.m., her whispered promises over the kitchen table. "I'm doing this so you don't have to, Vic. I'm doing this so you never wear this uniform. Promise me you'll get out." And he did promise. He studied hard. He was good with numbers, even better with code. Scholarship to a decent college. Roommates who didn't know what it meant to count coins at the grocery store. He spent nights building apps when other kids were partying. When his first startup got acquired, he wired money to pay his mother's debts. When his second company took off, he bought her a small house away from the city. He told himself he'd beaten the system, but somewhere along the way, he started to rewrite the story in his head. Instead of "I made it because people helped me," it became, "I made it because I'm better. Better than the kids who partied. Better than the people who stayed behind. Better than the cleaners who still scrub someone else's office at midnight." You ever seen someone forget where they came from once they get money? In Victor's mind, he hadn't just changed income brackets, he'd changed species. By the time he hit $1 billion, he'd stopped visiting his mother on weekends. He sent her gifts instead, sometimes expensive ones. It felt easier that way, less messy. Whenever a small, nagging voice inside him whispered, "You're becoming the kind of person who used to look down on your mom," he shut it down. "I earned this," he told himself. "I deserve this." And because nobody close to him challenged that, it grew. The same morning he refused to share the elevator, Victor had a high-stakes meeting scheduled on the top floor. The company was preparing to launch a new platform, one that would revolutionize something, the way tech companies always claim. Investors had flown in from out of state. They were the kind of people whose opinion could make or break a CEO's future. In the conference room, Elaine Rivers, the head of HR, was arranging printed agendas on the table. Elaine was in her 40s, sharp eyes behind simple glasses, salt just beginning to streak her dark hair. She'd spent years fighting to make the company less hostile for women, for people of color, for anyone who didn't fit the bros and hoodies startup stereotype. She believed people could grow. She wanted to believe Victor was still that kid who watched his mother scrub floors and swore he'd change their lives. But the more successful he became, the more he surrounded himself with people who laughed at his worst jokes and never said no. Elaine glanced at her watch. Where was he? Investors sat down, exchanging polite greetings. At the end of the table, a young woman in a navy blazer, Jasmine Park, the new PR director, was scrolling through her phone, checking their press mentions. Her thumb froze on a video thumbnail. No audio, just an image. A spotless lobby. An elevator. A man in a sharp suit inside. A woman in a cleaning uniform outside. Her stomach dropped. She tapped it. The video started playing. It was 27 seconds long. Shaky at first. The person recording clearly hadn't planned to catch anything more than some random background shot. You could hear a quiet, muttered voice. Is that Victor Langston?" Then Maya's voice, "Hold it, please." The sound of the doors sliding. Victor's face turning, annoyed. His words, spoken loud enough to echo off the polished walls. "Take the service elevator. This one's for executives." The cleaner's explanation about the broken service elevator was clear. His reply about the elevator not being hers was even clearer. Then the doors closed. The video ended on Maya standing there alone, her shoulders slightly hunched, people in the lobby pretending not to have seen anything. There was a moment of silence in the conference room. Then a notification ping. Then another. And another. Jasmine's screen lit up with a string of messages from her team. "Have you seen this? It's going viral. #executive elevators trending." Her heart raced. She looked up slowly, meeting Elaine's eyes across the table. "Elaine," she said quietly, "we have a problem." By the time Victor walked into that conference room, straightening his cufflinks, confident smile plastered on his face, the video had already hit 10,000 views. Somewhere, someone had posted it with a caption that cut straight through the polished glass image he'd spent years cultivating. "Billionaire refuses to share elevator with black cleaner. Says, this one's for executives." Remember, this is the guy who preaches equality of opportunity in his TED Talks. You know how fast outrage travels online. Faster than any elevator. Faster than any press release. Victor walked in, arms extended. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you for... Victor, Jasmine interrupted, voice tight. Not many people interrupted him. He blinked. Yes. We need to talk. Now. Elaine stepped forward, holding up her phone. You were in the lobby 15 minutes ago, right? She asked carefully. He frowned. Of course. I just came from my car. Why? She hit play. He watched himself on screen. Watched his own mouth shape the words. Take the service elevator. This one's for executives. In the conference room, the investors exchanged looks. Some uncomfortable, some disapproving. One of them, Mr. Cho, leaned back in his chair, lips pressed into a thin line. Victor's face went pale, then red. Someone was recording. He muttered. That's your first concern. Elaine said softly, eyebrows lifting. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then looked up, trying to recalibrate. It's a misunderstanding, he said quickly. The lobby is supposed to be clear during peak hours. This building has rules for a reason. I was just enforcing standards. Standards. Jasmine repeated, incredulous. Cleaners are employees too. Victor, Elaine added, her voice firmer now. They are staff. They aren't some inconvenience. It's not about that, he snapped. Look, we have executives coming in. We need the lobby to look a certain way. You refuse to share an elevator, Mr. Cho cut in, his voice calm but icy, with a black woman in a cleaning uniform. And it's on camera. That's what this looks like. Victor's jaw clenched. But that's not who I am, he insisted. People are blowing it out of proportion. We can get ahead of this. We'll issue a statement about safety protocols or... Elaine said, you could start by saying you were wrong. He stared at her like she'd suggested he give away his entire fortune. Wrong? Him. He'd built this building. He paid everyone's salaries. He'd earned the right to be impatient, to be efficient. Hadn't he? He took a breath, forcing calm. Let's not be dramatic, he said. We have a huge launch coming up. We can't let some out-of-context clip derail. Jasmine turned her phone around again. The comments aren't just about the clip, she said. People are posting screenshots of your TED Talk on respecting every worker. They're digging up that quote from your book about never forgetting the janitor who believed in you. They're calling you a hypocrite. He swallowed. He had said those things. But that was branding. Image. Words crafted by a ghostwriter and a PR team. This was reality. Messier. Less convenient. Who is she? Elaine asked suddenly. The cleaner in the video. Do you know her name? Victor hesitated. He pictured her face. He realized, uncomfortably, that he had no idea. He'd walked past cleaning staff in this building every day for 2 years. He couldn't name a single one. He looked away. I don't know, he admitted. Silence. In that silence, something fractured. Not in the internet, though that was happening too. In the room. In how these people saw him. If you're still with me, let me ask. If you saw that video online, what would you think of him? Would you accept I was stressed as an excuse? Tell me in the comments what you would have done if you were Elaine or Jasmine in that moment. Because what they chose to do next changed everything. Behind closed doors, Elaine requested an emergency meeting with Victor. Just the two of them. She closed the door gently, then turned to face him. He was pacing, tie loosened now, fingers dragging through his hair. I've worked here 8 years, she began. I've seen you fire people in seconds for saying less than what you said today. That was different, he argued. How? They insulted management. They undermined company values. And what you did today wasn't against our values, she asked. He flinched. You humiliated a black woman in front of an entire lobby, she continued. A woman whose only offense was trying to do her job. You told her she didn't belong in an elevator you were in. You turned executive into a caste. He dropped into his chair. You're exaggerating. I didn't mention her race. I didn't say anything explicit. Elaine finished. You didn't have to. You're a white billionaire. She's a black cleaner. Context speaks for itself. He looked up at her, eyes hardening. Careful, Elaine, he warned. If you're implying. I'm implying what everyone else is seeing. she cut in. Classism, racism, arrogance. Take your pick. He slammed his palm on the desk. I built this place, he shouted. Nobody handed me anything. I worked harder than any of them. I have a right to expect. You have a right to respect, she replied calmly. Not to cruelty. He stayed at her, chest heaving. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then her voice softened. Victor, she said quietly, I know where you came from. I've seen the old photos. The ones of you and your mom in that tiny kitchen. Do you remember what she did for work? He looked away. That's not the same, he muttered. Isn't it? Elaine asked. She cleaned offices. Wore a uniform like Maya's. You've told that story in interviews to make yourself relatable, to inspire people. But when someone like your mother stood in front of you today, you slammed a door in her face. His throat tightened. The image flashed in his mind. His mother's cracked hands, the smell of industrial cleaner on her clothes, the way she'd come home and kiss his forehead no matter how exhausted she was. He pushed the memory down. I can't change what happened, he said. It was a split-second thing. People overreact online all the time. This will blow over. Elaine shook her head slowly. Not this time, she said. Not with your face, your voice, your words, your brand of respecting every worker. The board has already reached out. Investors are talking. Employees are angry. That cleaner, she added, has a name. It's Maya Johnson. She's been here almost 2 years. You pass her every week. He flinched again. HR is formally opening an internal review, Elaine continued. And I strongly suggest you speak to her. Not as a PR move. As a human being. He scoffed. You want me to go kneel in the janitor's closet and beg forgiveness? He said. No, she replied. I want you to sit in a room with a woman who did nothing wrong, and look her in the eye, and listen to what your actions did to her. He laughed once, humorless. Do you have any idea what my schedule looks like? He asked. We're days away from launch. I can't just drop everything to coddle some. He stopped himself, but the word hung in the air anyway. Somewhat. Some cleaning lady. Some nobody. Elaine's expression shifted, hurt, then resolve. I can't make you care, she said. But I can make sure this company doesn't ignore what you did. She stood. You taught us all to hold people accountable, she said. That includes you. And with that, she walked out. While all this was happening in boardrooms and private offices, Maya was on her knees, scrubbing. Not because of some punishment. Because that was her job. She'd taken the stairs, sweat dripping down her back, her legs trembling from pushing the heavy cart up multiple flights. By the time she reached the next floor, she was exhausted. But she still straightened things up. Emptied trash cans. Wiped down surfaces. When Carlos found her, she was scrubbing a coffee stain off the carpet, her shoulders tense. Hey, he said gently. I just heard what happened downstairs. She looked up quickly, wiping her eyes with the back of her gloved hand. I'm fine, she lied. He crouched down next to her. No, you're not, he said. Nobody would be after that. She hesitated, then sighed. You know what the worst part was? She asked. He shook his head. Everyone just watched, she said. Like it was normal. Like I was the one who made things awkward. She swallowed. I wanted to shout. She admitted. I wanted to say, you're not better than me just because your suit costs more than my month's rent. But I also want to keep my job. I need this job. You won't lose your job, Carlos said firmly. If anyone should be worried right now, it's him. She gave a hollow laugh. Please, she said. People like him don't lose jobs. They just hire someone to fix things. Carlos hesitated. There's something else, he said. The whole thing. Someone filmed it. It's online. It's blowing up. Her blood ran cold. Online, she whispered. Like, people can see me. He nodded. Her instinct was to panic. Her life was already complicated. She didn't need strangers on the internet dissecting her expression, her posture, her dignity. I didn't do anything wrong, she said softly, almost to herself. No, Carlos agreed. You didn't. And that's exactly why people are angry. At him. She sat back on her heels, staring at the wall. What if this gets me in trouble? She asked. What if they say I embarrass the company? Carlos shook his head again. I'll stand up for you, he promised. Elaine will too. Trust me. I was not letting this slide. She exhaled slowly. Do you think he even remembers my face? She asked. Carlos didn't answer. That silence told her everything she needed to know. By midday, the #executives only was trending. Some people made jokes. Others shared long threads about their own experiences being treated like they were invisible because of their job or their skin color. Janitors, nurses, drivers, waiters. One person wrote, "You can tell everything you need to know about someone by how they treat the people they think they don't need." Another, "I once worked night shift cleaning offices. The CEO insisted we use a back entrance so he wouldn't have to see mops. Seeing this video makes me sick." Some people pulled up Victor's famous old speech. Clips of him saying, "The janitor in the building I grew up in used to tell me, 'Don't forget us when you're up there.' I never did." Played next to the elevator video. Talk show hosts cracked jokes. Commentators argued. Some defended him. Everyone has a bad day. Others were ruthless. If you believe people in power should be held accountable for how they treat those with less power, go ahead and hit that like button. Because that's exactly what the world was starting to demand from Victor. That evening, Victor got the email he'd hoped to avoid. Emergency board meeting. Attendance mandatory. He stayed at the subject line, fingers tightening around his phone. In the boardroom, the atmosphere was different than usual. Less small talk, more tension. On the screen at the front of the room, paused on the first frame, was that now infamous video. Victor, Marjorie Hale, the board chair, began. "Do you understand why we're here?" "Yes," he said tightly. "Because someone with too much time on their hands decided to blow a minor interaction out of." "Stop," she said sharply. He did. "This isn't about optics anymore," she said. "This is about who you are as a leader, about our culture, about whether the man at the top believes the people who clean this building are beneath him." He opened his mouth, but she held up a hand. "I don't want spin," she said. "I don't want brand language. I want to know, do you regret what you did?" He hesitated. The honest answer, in the moment, no. He'd been annoyed. He'd felt entitled to be alone. He'd spoken from that place. Even now, a part of him still believed executives shouldn't have to share space when they were in the zone. But he also knew what they wanted to hear. "Yes," he said finally. "It was a misstep. I was impatient. I should have handled it differently." Handled her differently. One board member corrected under their breath. He ignored it. "We're not just worried about your tone," Marjorie said. "We're worried about your beliefs. We've worked hard to build a company that claims to respect every role, that claims to be inclusive. This video undermines all of that." "It will blow over," he repeated stubbornly. "Give it a week." "That's not how this works," she replied. "For you, maybe it could. For her, for every employee who watched that clip and felt smaller, this stays with them." An older board member, Samir Patel, leaned forward. "We've reviewed our initial report," he said. "We've also heard account from staff who say this isn't the first time they've seen you treat support staff with contempt." Victor's eyes widened. "That's ridiculous," he said. "People are exaggerating to take advantage of." "Are they?" Semi asked. "Or have we all just been looking away because the numbers were good and the stock was up?" Silence. Marjorie folded her hands. "Here's where we are," she said. "We're not removing you as CEO. Not yet. But we are imposing conditions." He bristled. "Conditions?" he repeated. "Yes," she said. "First, you will issue a public apology. Not some vague sorry if anyone was offended nonsense. A real apology, by name, to Ms. Maya Johnson." He clenched his jaw. "Second," she continued, "you will meet with her privately, along with HR present, and hear her out." He opened his mouth. "Third," she said firmly, cutting him off, "you will participate in the leadership training program we've brought in for every senior executive. Not just a box-ticking exercise. You will show up." He scoffed. "You can't be serious," he said. "You want the CEO to sit in some HR workshop like he's an intern who made an off-color joke." "Yes," Marjorie said simply. "Because right now, the CEO is the one on that screen, and he's the one sending the clearest message about what we truly tolerate." He felt heat rising in his face. "This is humiliating," he said. "So was being told you didn't belong in an elevator," she replied. "Imagine how Maya felt." He looked away. "The last condition," Samir added, "is less formal. It's a warning. Victor, We believed in you enough to back you this far. But if there's another incident like this, if we get even a whiff that you haven't learned from this, we will have to consider your position." He swallowed. "So that's it," he said. "Say sorry, sit through a training, shake hand with a cleaner, and we all move on." Marjorie exhaled. "What you do with this moment is up to you," she said. "It can be a footnote, or it can be a turning point." He didn't respond. But inside, something ugly flared. He felt cornered, attacked, forced. He left the boardroom feeling less like a visionary and more like a child being scolded. And people like him, they didn't take kindly to feeling small. 2 days later, Victor walked into a small conference room on the 10th floor. No floor-to-ceiling windows. No fancy artwork. Just a plain table, 4 chairs, a pitcher of water. Elaine was already there, laptop closed, hands folded. Maya sat beside her, in her neat uniform. She looked smaller in that big chair, but her posture was straight. When Victor walked in, he saw her eyes flick up to his face, then away. He swallowed. He prepared some lines with Jasmine, words about unfortunate misunderstandings and company values. But as he closed the door behind him, the script felt flimsy. The silence was thick. Elaine gestured to the empty chair across from Maya. "Thank you for coming," she said. He sat today. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Maya broke the silence first. "Do I need a lawyer or something?" she asked, half joking, half serious. Elaine shook her head. "You're not in trouble," she said. "You didn't do anything wrong. This meeting is for you." Maya nodded slowly. She glanced at Victor. He shifted in his seat. "I believe you have something you wanted to say," Elaine prompted him. He cleared his throat. "Ms. Johnson," he began, "I want to apologize for the other morning. I was under a lot of stress, and I didn't handle the situation the way I should have. It was never my intention to make you feel." "Stop," Maya said quietly. He blinked. "I've heard that apology before," she said. "From customers. From supervisors. I was stressed. I didn't intend." She looked him dead in the eyes. "You might not have intended to make me feel less than you," she said. "But you did. You made it very clear that in your mind, there's a line. People like you on one side. People like me on the other." Her voice didn't waver. "You told me to take the service elevator," she continued. "You knew it was broken. You knew I was on a time crunch. You could see me pushing that cart that weighs more than my son. And you still couldn't stand the idea of sharing a square of space with me for 30 seconds. He opened his mouth, but she wasn't finished. "You didn't just close elevator doors on me," she said. "You closed years of effort, dignity, pride I have in my work. You made me feel like I was dirt on your shoe, that my presence tainted something." Her voice cracked for the first time at that word. Tainted. He felt something twist in his chest. "It brought back things I've tried hard to forget," she said. "Teachers assuming I was trouble before I spoke. Store workers following me down aisles. People clutching their bags when I sat next to them. Being told, this line is for customers only, when I was a customer." She took a breath. "You just added elevators are for executives to the list." He looked down at his hands. "I didn't mean." He tried again. "It doesn't matter what you meant," she said. "It matters what you did." Elaine watched quietly, letting it unfold. "Do you know what my son asked me when he saw the video?" Maya continued. He looked up, startled. "He saw it?" he asked. She nodded. "It got shared so much that one of his classmates' parents saw it and showed it to their kid," she said. "Then it got to him. Kids talk. They asked him, 'Is this your mom?' She swallowed. He came home and said, 'Mom, why does that man hate you? You're not dirty.'" The room tilted for a moment for Victor. He pictured a boy somewhere with his eyes, asking that question. "I didn't know what to tell him," Maya said softly. "Because the truth is, I don't know why people like you feel so comfortable treating people like me like we're in the way." Silence. For once, Victor didn't try to fill it. Elaine spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "Victor," she said, "this is your chance to respond. Not as a CEO, as a person." He looked at Maya. He saw the lines of exhaustion in her face, the resolve, the pain sitting just behind her eyes. And suddenly, like a movie projection flickering to life, he saw his mother's face overlapping hers. His mother, standing in a hallway with a mop, being told to use the back door. His mother, shoulders slumped when businessmen walked past her like she was furniture. His mother, sitting at their small kitchen table, saying, "Promise me you'll be better than them, Vic." He pressed his fingers together. Before he could stop it, his voice shook just a little. "You're right," he said. "It doesn't matter what I meant. It matters what I did. And what I did was ugly." Maya blinked, surprised by the word. "I forgot," he continued, voice low. "I forgot where I came from. My mom was a cleaner too. I grew up watching people look past her. I watched them act like she wasn't there. And somewhere along the way, I became them." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "That's not the man I thought I was," he said. "But that's the man I was that morning." He looked at her directly now. "I am sorry, Maya," he said. "Not because I got caught. Not because it's bad press. But because I made you feel small. Because I taught your son the wrong lesson about people like me." She held his gaze for a long moment. "How do I know this isn't just about your image?" she asked finally. He exhaled slowly. "You don't," he admitted. "Not today. Maybe not for a long time. All I can do is show you. I'll try to." She nodded once. "Then start by learning my name without someone having to tell you," she said. "And the names of the others. We're not the cleaners. We're people." He nodded. "Okay," he said quietly. "You're right." Elaine allowed herself the smallest smile. This wasn't redemption. Not yet. But it was a crack in the armor. The first step. Now, the title of this story mentioned instant karma, right? And you might be thinking, okay, he got dragged online. He got chewed out by the board. Is that the karma? Not quite. That's the surface. The real moment came a few days later. Late one night, after the building had mostly emptied, Victor stayed late at the office, trying to outrun the storm. He threw himself into work, telling himself that if the launch went well, everything else would quiet down. Around 11 p.m., he packed his laptop and headed toward the elevator. The building was quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own footsteps echo. He jabbed the elevator button, impatient as always. The doors opened. Empty. He stepped inside, hit the button for the lobby, and leaned back against the wall, massaging his temples. Halfway down, the elevator shuddered. He frowned. The lights flickered. The elevator jerked once, twice, then stopped. Dead. His stomach dropped. "Come on," he muttered, hitting the panel. "Don't do this." He hit the buttons again. Nothing. He tried the emergency call button. A crackle, then silence. His heart began to race. He told himself it was fine. Elevators got stuck all the time. They'd fix it. He just had to wait. Then the lights went out. Total darkness. For a man used to controlling everything, the narrative, the room, the meetings, that kind of sudden helplessness can feel like drowning. He took a deep breath. It didn't help. The air felt thicker. He loosened his tie, his mind flashing through worst-case scenarios. What if the cable snaps? What if I'm here for hours? He pressed the emergency button again. Still nothing. "Hello," he called. "Is anyone there?" His voice bounced back at him. Hollow. Panic scratched at the edges of his chest. He sank down slowly, back sliding against the cold wall, until he was sitting on the floor of the fancy elevator he'd once considered his private domain. Just him, the dark, and the faint hum of a stuck machine. You ever notice how, when you're forced to sit still, the stuff you've been running from catches up? Memories started surfacing. His mother again, sweating in stairwells because the service elevators in her buildings were for equipment only. A time she twisted her ankle and limped up flights, ignoring the pain, because that's the job. He heard her voice in his head. "Don't become one of them, Vic. The ones who forget that people are people, no matter what they do." He promised. He'd broken that promise. Sitting there in the dark, those boardroom conversations, that meeting with Maya, it all piled on. The truth settled in his chest like a weight. He had built a life on top of people whose names he didn't know. And when one of them slipped into his airspace, his first instinct was to push her out. His breathing grew shallow. He pressed his palms over his eyes, trying to anchor himself. That's how he stayed, shaking, sweating, stripped of all his bravado, until he heard it. A faint clanging, then a muffled voice from above. "Hello, sir. Can you hear me?" He looked up. "Yes," he shouted. "Yes, I'm stuck in here." "Do you feel okay?" the voice called. "Are you hurt?" He swallowed. I'm okay, he called back, although his racing heart argued otherwise. We're working on getting the doors open, the voice replied. Hang tight. He exhaled shakily. Minutes stretched. Finally, with a screech and a jolt, the elevator shuttered. A narrow crack of light appeared as the doors were pried open, about a foot. He squinted, eyes adjusting. He could see a pair of hands, fingers gripping the door edge. Then a face leaned down, flashlight beam catching familiar brown eyes. It was Maya. She wore a safety vest over her uniform, and a headlamp pushed up on her bandana. Her brows pulled together in concern when she saw him. You okay? She asked. He stared up at her, speechless. Of all the people who could have been there when his illusion of invincibility cracked open, it was the woman he'd refused to share space with. Why, yeah, he stammered. I think so. She shifted her grip, muscles straining as she held the door open. Maintenance is trying to override the system, she said. You're between floors. We're going to have to pull you up. Pull me up, he repeated, alarmed. She gave a tiny, amused huff despite the seriousness of the situation. It's either that or you grow roots and live here now, she replied. On 3. Okay? I'll take your hand. You'll have to trust me. Trust. That word landed heavily. He shuffled forward, heart pounding, until he was close enough to reach up. Her hand, in its worn work glove, closed firmly around his. Okay, she said. 1, 2, 3. With a coordinated effort between her and the maintenance crew, he was dragged up through the narrow opening onto the floor above. He collapsed onto the hallway carpet, gasping. For a moment, all he could do was stare at the ceiling. Then a bottle of water appeared in his line of sight. He turned his head. Maya held it out. She said. You look like you could use it. He took it, his hand still trembling slightly. Thank you, he said. She nodded. That elevator's had issues for weeks, she said. We've been telling management. But nobody listens to the people who ride the service one. So. She let the sentence hang. He pushed himself up slowly, sitting now, back against the wall. Feels different from this angle, he said, half to himself. She tilted her head. What does? She asked. Being stuck, he replied. Needing help. She shrugged. Some of us don't have the option of pretending we don't, she said. We depend on each other all the time. You've been pretending you carry everything alone for so long. You forgot. He looked at her, really looked at her. The headlamp, the reflective vest, the calloused hands that had just pulled him to safety. You saved me, he said. After what He trailed off. She shrugged again. You're a person, she said simply. Don't get me wrong. I'm still angry about what happened. But if I had walked away just now and left you screaming in that box, how would I be any better? He swallowed hard. Why are you like this? He asked. Why are you kinder than I deserve? She smiled, but there was sadness in it. I had a mom who worked herself to the bone, she said. She taught me that you don't let someone suffer if you can help it, even if they'd never do the same for you. She paused. And I'm trying to teach my son the same thing, she added. I want him to know that his character isn't defined by how people treat him, but by how he chooses to act anyway. His eyes stung. In that dim hallway, sitting on the floor in his expensive suit, he felt something crack open fully for the first time in years. It wasn't just guilt. It was grief. Grief for the person he'd become. Grief for the promises he'd broken, to his mother, to himself. He bowed his head. I'm sorry, he whispered again. I keep saying that, but it feels so small compared to. He gestured vaguely around them. To the damage, she supplied. He nodded. Then don't stop at words, she said. Do something with it. That night, when he got home, Victor didn't pour himself a drink like he usually did. He didn't open his laptop. He sat at his dining table in the dark, just thinking. Then he dug through an old box until he found a photo. Him, 12 years old, holding a broom twice his height. His mother beside him, laughing, her arm draped around his shoulders. At the bottom, in her looping handwriting, was a note. For my boy, who will never forget where he came from. He stayed at the words until they blurred. The next morning, he did something that would have shocked everyone in his orbit, including himself, just a week earlier. He called Elaine. I want to talk, he said. About what? she asked cautiously. About changing things, he said. Really changing them. Not just updating the website with some "we value everyone" statement. There was a pause. Okay, she said slowly. I'm listening. Over the following weeks, people in the building started noticing differences. Small at first, then bigger. Here's what changed. The elevators. The very first policy Victor tackled was the one he'd used as his shield: elevator protocol. He stood in front of a surprised crowd in the lobby one morning. Cleaners, receptionists, tech staff, executives, and made an announcement. From today onward, he said, voice echoing off the marble, there is no executive elevator. There are just elevators. For people. All people who work here, no matter what's on their ID badge, have the same right to use every entrance, every elevator, every hallway. If anyone has a problem with that, you can come talk to me. Personally. People glanced at each other. Cleaners looked skeptical, but they remembered that video. Hearing the same man who'd refused to share a metal box now publicly dismantle the rule he'd clung to, it mattered. The names. Victor started coming in earlier. Not for meetings. To walk the building. He'd stop by the break rooms that cleaners used, the security desk, the mailroom. At first, people were wary. But he kept showing up. What's your name? He'd ask. He carried a small notebook. He wrote them down. How long have you been here? What's the hardest part of your job that nobody sees? He listened. Uncomfortable sometimes. Challenged often. One cleaner, an older man named Robert, gave it to him straight. You want an honest answer, he said. Always, Victor replied. The hardest part, Robert said, is being treated like a shadow. People drop trash on the floor right after we mop. They leave messes in the kitchen like they expect someone's mom to come clean up. They don't look at us. We're here. But to them, we're not. Victor swallowed. That used to be your mom, Robert added quietly. It shows in your file. Don't forget that again. The pay and respect. It didn't stop at feelings. Elaine pushed, hard, for tangible changes. Higher wages for cleaning and support staff. Clearer anti-discrimination policies with teeth. Training that wasn't just a slideshow people clicked through while checking emails. Victor backed her publicly. He insisted on attending every training session himself, sitting in the front row, not as the lecturer, but as a participant. People noticed. The story. When the noise online finally started to quiet down, a reporter requested an interview. Ignore it, Jasmine initially advised. It might dredge things back up. But Victor shook his head. No, he said. If I'm going to talk, I should talk when it's not convenient, not just when I need damage control. In that interview, he didn't sugarcoat things. He admitted he'd been arrogant, that he'd forgotten his roots, that he'd hurt someone who didn't deserve it. He mentioned Maya by name, with her permission. But he did something else, too. He highlighted her work. He talked about how the company literally could not function without people like her. He announced a new scholarship fund in his mother's name, directed specifically toward children of custodial staff in the city, so that kids like Elijah could have a different set of choices. Let's jump ahead a bit. Months later, the elevator incident was no longer trending. It had been replaced, as all internet scandals are, by a new outrage. But inside Langston Towers, the echoes remained. Maya still did a job. She still pushed her cart. Her back still ached some nights. But when she walked into the lobby now, people didn't avoid her eyes. They greeted her. Good morning, Maya. Hey, Maya. How are you today? Sometimes it felt awkward, like they were overcorrecting. But other times, it felt real. One afternoon, as she was wiping down a glass partition, she heard footsteps behind her. Hey, a familiar voice said. She turned. It was Victor. No entourage. No camera. Just him. I wanted to show you something, he said. She raised an eyebrow. He handed her a small folder. Inside were printed flyers. At the top, the Jean Langston Scholarship for Custodial Families. Maya's eyes widened as she scanned the text. Full or partial scholarships for kids of cleaners, maintenance staff, janitors, workshops, mentorship programs. She looked up slowly. Why are you showing me this? She asked. Because you changed my life, he said simply. And I thought, maybe together we could change a few more. Her instinct was to brush it off, to say, I didn't do anything, because that's what people like her are taught to say. But she'd been raising a son she wanted to see himself as powerful, not small. So she let herself accept a piece of it. I just stood in front of an elevator, she said softly. You decided what to do after. He smiled, a little rueful. You also pulled me out of one, he reminded her. Literally. She laughed. Don't forget that part, she said. It's my favorite. He chuckled. Consider it permanently etched in my mind, he said. She sobered. Can I ask you something? She said. Of course. Do you actually feel different? She asked. Or are you just doing the right things because you're supposed to? He considered. I used to think being a good person was a brand, he said. Something you projected. A story you told about yourself. Now I think it's smaller. It's how you behave when nobody's recording. Whether you hold a door. Whether you bother to learn someone's name. He looked at her. I still mess up, he admitted. I still catch myself making assumptions. But now, at least, I hear that voice in my head sooner. And it sounds a lot like you. And my mom. She smiled, surprised at the warmth in her chest. Okay, she said. Then we'll see where you are in another 6 months. Is that a challenge? He asked. Consider it accountability, she said. Fair enough. One evening, Maya sat at the small kitchen table in her apartment, helping Elijah with his homework. He paused, pencil hovering above the page. Mom, he asked. Yeah, baby. Do you still work in that building with a mean elevator man? He asked. She smiled slightly. Is not the mean elevator man anymore, she said. He's trying. Elijah frowned thoughtfully. Can people just stop being mean? He asked. She thought about that. Not overnight, she said. But sometimes something happens that makes them see themselves clearly. Like a mirror they don't like. And if they really want to change, they start choosing different things. He nodded slowly. Like you still helped him when he was stuck, he said, even though he was mean. Yeah, she said. Exactly like that. He was quiet for a second. Then his eyes lit up. Mom, he said. Do you think, one day, I could work in that building? He asked. But not as a cleaner. Maybe as a scientist or something. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I think one day, she said, you can own your own building if you want. He grinned. And if I see a cleaner, I'm gonna hold the elevator for them, he declared. Tess pricked her eyes. Good, she said, voice thick. That's my boy. So, what's the lesson, hey? Is it, don't be racist on camera? No, that's too easy. If you've been listening closely, you know it goes deeper than that. This is a story about what happens when someone confuses success with superiority. When they forget the sacrifices other people made so they could ride that elevator in the first place. It's about a billionaire who used to be a poor kid, and somewhere along the way decided that his comfort mattered more than someone else's dignity. And it's about a black cleaner, a woman the world is trained not to notice, who refused to let his ugliness define her, who saved him when she had every reason to walk away, and who helped him remember the person he once promised to be. If you're still watching, let me ask you, have you ever been treated like you were less than because of your job, your clothes, your skin, your accent? Have you ever caught yourself treating someone else that way? Be honest, because we all have blind spots. Sometimes, karma isn't a lightning bolt from the sky. Sometimes, it's a stuck elevator, a shaky phone video, a kid asking, why does that man hate you? Sometimes, karma is simply being forced to stand face to face with the person you've become and deciding if that's who you want to stay. Next time you step into an elevator, in a mall, an office building, wherever, look around. Who's there with you? The person in a suit, the person with a mop, the person delivering packages. In that small box, for a few seconds, you're all just human beings going from one floor to another. Nobody's better, nobody's less, just people. If you believe everyone deserves that basic respect, no matter what they do or how they look, hit that like button. And if you've ever seen something like this happen in real life, or lived through it yourself, share it in the comments. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs. Subscribe if you want more true-to-life stories like this, where the lessons cut a little deeper than the headlines. And remember, the real executive move isn't riding an elevator alone. It's choosing, every day, to see the humanity in the person standing right next to you.